Good morning. So I'm going to continue working my way through Harville Hendrix's and his wife's book, Doing Relationship Therapy in the Space Between. I'm still, I'm just in the preface, but it's pretty heavy sledding, but I think it's important stuff. And I'm going to quote Harville and Helen pretty extensively this morning, just because it might help you understand their train of thought. And remember, this is just the preface. There's another 500 pages to the book where they'll explicate things more. But I think if we can understand sort of their thinking at the start, I think it'll help. And I think what they're really doing is challenging the whole field of psychology as we know it today. And I'll try to explain that as I go on. So the preface is sort of their intellectual autobiography. And I explained a little bit last time. And then today they say, one day we found ourselves thinking a previously unthinkable thought. The problems couples bring into our office are not located inside themselves, where they have been since the founding of psychotherapy in the late 19th century. They are located in their interactions with each other, in the space between them. And Henry Stack Sullivan, a psychologist back in the 1950s and 60s, said something similar. He says, it does not matter so much what happens inside an individual. What matters is what happens between them. So think about it now. It's not what goes on inside a person, but it's their interactions. Anyway, that's what brings them into the office. So coming to the conclusion that what transforms couples' relationship is not the depth of their internal explorations, nor historical exploration, nor insight, but the quality of their interactions with each other, led to the question of the necessary conditions for relationship transformation. So if that's true, what happens between people is more important. So what's the key there? And they say it turned out to be simple. The requirement for all thriving organisms is safety. And we've talked a lot about that, about the importance of safety. So then we came to another conclusion. Now here's where he's challenging psychology as we know it. The roots of psychology is the separate self of Western culture and was modeled after the atom, which Newton proclaimed was that out of which everything is made. So in Newtonian physics, the importance of the atom, the smallest bit. Freud converted this separate self into the psychological self by endowing it with an interior world called subjectivity. Now think about it. Couples, and this is, I think, what therapy is still about a lot today. Couples from that perspective are two individuals essentially separate, who are trying to live together without conflict and hopefully with satisfaction and sometimes joyful aliveness. To overcome their alienation, they were directed to explore their inner world of feeling and memories in order to acquire insight, which would restore them to their pre-neurotic condition. This autonomous self eventually became the centerpiece of civilization, giving birth to the individual paradigm. Now here's where they differ. They say, for us, the discovery of the centrality of relationship conflicted with his perspective, which was and is the orthodoxy of our profession. So then the challenge became to garner a scientific grounds for relationship as reality. And in chapter 1, they explore sort of a relational thread that they discovered in the history of psychotherapy that led to the formulation of a new paradigm we call the relational paradigm. Now, so essentially, this paradigm makes relationship central and the individual peripheral, distinct from the individual paradigm, which makes the self the center of reality and relationship peripheral or optional. Therapy in the individual paradigm is understanding leading to insight and the release of internal constraints. In the relationship paradigm, therapy is a function of the resonance and connecting made possible by safe exchanges in the space between that lead to the experience of connecting, full aliveness, joy, and wonder. So I think up until now, psychology is basically about fixing the individual, and then hopefully the relationship will work. And they're saying, no, that it's a relation that's going to be the important thing. So then they go on. Since relational reality has no ground in psychology, since by definition psychology is about the self, psychology, the logos of the psyche, psychology, the logos of the psyche, what's going on in the individual. We proceeded to ask the question, if the paradigm of the individual is grounded in the hardcore science of Newtonian atomism, and since that paradigm does not contain data of the foundational reality of relationship, is it possible to ground the relational paradigm in another hardcore science, quantum physics, that posits the interconnectivity of everything? So then, I know I'm quoting a lot here, but I'm just trying to help you to see their train of thought. Because then through the lens of quantum theory, we learn, because they are studying it too, they're trying to understand, we learn that reality is a connecting field of energy, information, consciousness, in which all forms, including the universe itself, arise and dissolve. In quantum theory, this is called the particle-wave duality. This perspective posits the field as primary, the form as secondary, and interconnecting as a primary feature of nature. So then they began to language our thoughts that quantum physics is the ground of the relational paradigm and of imago relationship therapy. So it's a shift from Newtonian physics to quantum theory. With this understanding, our formulation of the space between became less a metaphor and more an instance of real space, a manifestation of the quantum field containing the same energies that constitute the space between subatomic particles and galactic forms. In other words, your little relationship is a microcosm of the vast macrocosm. Everything about us wants to connect, but if you put negativity into the space between, it causes disconnect. It's pretty simple. I think from a couple's point of view, you can't keep putting negativity in the space between because it causes disconnect, and what you want is to connect. It'll destroy your relationship. So they use the image of a river flowing between two people, and they say, you both drink from the same water, you wash from the same water, so if you put negativity in there, whoever puts it in affects you both. And the other analogy I like is the one of light. You can't block it, like the light coming in from the window there. If I put negativity into my relationship, into the space between, it's going to affect my partner. She can't block it. All right? So then, and it goes back to remember what he said about what all organisms need to thrive is safety. So you have to make the space between safe. Their conclusion of the preface is, as contemporary psychotherapy and couples therapy was grounded in classical physics, we view the quantum field as the ground for the reinvention of our view of humanity as a whole and the person as a location in the whole. Looking at reality in general and humanity in particular through the lens of ontological connecting can lead not only to the reconstruction of all our disciplines like psychology and therapy, but to the reconstruction of all our philosophies and social institutions. And I know it's pretty heavy stuff. And the book is about couples therapy, but towards the end, they're going to look at how really does it affect all of us and all of nature, all of our interactions. But I hope as we work our way through doing the imago relationship in the space between, we can all come to a better understanding of what they're about and its importance of all our lives. Anyway, and because it starts with the couple, but think about relationships in general, politics, all kinds of stuff. If we stress the importance of the relationship, it's sort of the idea that we're always in relationship. Friends, family, or family. We're not individuals, but the individual paradigm has really been present for a long, long time. So their point is we're born in relationship, we're wounded in relationship, we can be healed in relationship, but it has wider implications. Anyway, I know. Heavy slide. Next week we'll get into the introduction and see how far we get. Okay. Take care. Have a great week.